My sister tried to sabotage every milestone. What would you do if your own sister turned every milestone in your life into her personal stage show, and one day ended up pointing a cake knife at your stomach during her baby shower? This is the story of 28 years of family chaos, lies, fake pregnancies, and a shocking ending you won't believe. They say every family has its drama, but mine? Ours was practically a soap opera staged in the living room, with my sister Maya always in the starring role. She's 2 years older than me, and I swear she entered the world demanding a standing ovation. Some kids cry when they're born, Maya wailed like a diva rehearsing for the opera. I came 2 years later, quiet and wide-eyed, apparently destined to be her audience rather than her rival. Even as children, she had this uncanny ability to twist reality around her until everyone saw her as the victim or the heroine, whichever role gave her more attention. One of my earliest memories is of my pet goldfish, Bubbles. He was my first real responsibility, something my parents gave me when I begged for a dog and they decided I wasn't ready. I adored that little orange flicker of life in his tank. But when Bubbles died, just the natural fate of a small pet, Maya staged a performance. She convinced our parents that Bubbles hadn't died naturally at all. According to her, my fish had taken his own life out of jealousy over her hamster's deluxe cage setup. She even cried, shaking her little fists in righteous indignation, saying I had created a toxic environment for my fish. The result? A backyard funeral with flower petals and solemn words for a goldfish, while I got grounded for fostering negativity among pets. I was 6. Maya was 8. That was my first real lesson in how far she'd go to shift the spotlight her way. It only escalated from there. When I was 16, I worked tirelessly as a babysitter to scrape together enough money for my first car, a beat-up Honda Civic that smelled faintly of crayons and had a dented bumper. To me, it was freedom incarnate. I dreamed about blasting music with my friends, about feeling like I was finally catching up to the life Maya had always managed to overshadow. The night I brought the car home, my parents even set the dinner table with cake and sparkling cider to celebrate. For once, it felt like my moment. And then Maya, with perfect timing, announced she was dropping out of college. I can't do it anymore, she declared dramatically, her hand pressed to her forehead. The fluorescent lights in the dorms are wrecking my chakras. I have a rare sensitivity, it's destroying my energy balance. My parents gasped, horrified, and immediately peppered her with questions about her health. The cake sat untouched as my celebration transformed into an emergency family meeting about Maya's condition. By the end of the night, I was just a kid with a car parked outside, forgotten in the shadow of her supposed illness. It didn't stop there. At my college graduation, I stood in my cap and gown, waiting for hugs, photos, maybe even a proud tear from my parents. But the doors to the hall opened, and in walked Maya, wearing a wedding dress. Not a bright white one, but ivory, close enough that everyone gasped. I just got engaged, she squealed, waving a ring that practically screamed purchased from a pawn shop. None of us had met the man. In fact, he didn't exist. But my entire reception turned into an impromptu engagement party. Guests gathered around her, examining the ring, asking about the proposal. Meanwhile, my diploma, clutched in my sweaty hand, suddenly felt like nothing more than a prop in the Maya show. And the cycle repeated, milestone after milestone. When I earned my first job promotion after 3 years of grinding late nights and endless overtime, Maya crashed the dinner my friends and family had arranged. She stood dramatically in the doorway, whispered, "I think I might be pregnant," and collapsed into tears. Of course, she wasn't. She'd taken a pregnancy test in our parents' bathroom mid-party, and it came back negative. But by then, the evening had shifted entirely to her journey of womanhood. My raise? My success? Vanished into the background noise. By this point, my friends had caught on. They started placing bets whenever I had a celebration planned. Would Maya fake an illness? Would she announce a breakup? Would she show up in some costume that made the night hers? It became a running joke among them. For me, though, it wasn't funny. It was exhausting. Then came the night I got engaged to Tom. He's steady, reliable, kind, the exact opposite of Maya's constant chaos. Our engagement party was supposed to be one of the happiest nights of my life. But right as Tom's mom was giving a toast about our love story, Maya stood, tears in her eyes, and announced she'd been secretly battling chronic fatigue syndrome. She said she needed to move back in with our parents because her energy levels were dangerously low. The toast that was meant to honor our commitment suddenly became a eulogy for Maya's vitality. For years, I told myself she'd grow out of it, that maybe one day she'd get tired of stealing the spotlight. But she never did. Then came the twist I hadn't seen coming, Maya's real pregnancy. 6 months ago, she showed up with Derek, her boyfriend who works at a tire shop and collects vintage bottle caps. This time it wasn't a performance. Ultrasounds, doctor's notes, morning sickness, the whole package. For the first time, I thought maybe she finally had something real to hold on to, something that didn't require her to fabricate drama. I wanted to believe this would be different. That Maya could step into the role of mother without needing to sabotage me in the process. That maybe, just maybe, we could have a normal family moment together. But with Maya, nothing is ever simple. 6 months after Maya's announcement, the family was buzzing with excitement. For once, her pregnancy wasn't just a stage act, it was real. I put aside every lingering resentment and threw myself into helping organize her baby shower. I spent weeks buying decorations, stringing pastel streamers, ordering balloons, and hand-picking centerpieces that matched her theme. I even coordinated with relatives about food and travel. My 85-year-old grandmother boarded a Greyhound bus from 3 states away just to be there. I thought to myself, this time, she can't possibly find a way to twist the narrative. It's her day. She already has the spotlight. What nobody knew, not even Maya, was that I, too, was pregnant. Tom and I had been trying for over a year, with heartbreak along the way. I'd suffered a miscarriage before, and the fear of that loss haunted me. When we finally saw the positive test, we held the news close, waiting until we crossed that 12-week threshold when the risks lessen. We dreamed of announcing it with joy, not fear. So, on the morning of Maya's shower, I woke up glowing with anticipation, not to announce my pregnancy, but simply to celebrate hers. Then my phone exploded with 17 missed calls from my mother. Maya had fought with Derek. Over text. At 2 in the morning. He'd left her, claiming he wasn't emotionally ready for fatherhood. Now, Maya was declaring the shower cancelled. She couldn't, she insisted, bear the sight of joy when her heart was broken. My mother was frantic, trying to call relatives already on the road. The venue was decorated, the food ordered, the cake delivered. All of it teetered on the edge of ruin. I called Maya directly. Why cancel everything? We can still gather as a family, make it a supportive day for you. Her reply? A melodramatic sigh. No. It's too painful. But maybe everyone could just come comfort me instead. In my apartment. I need emotional support, not a party. The absurdity of it stung. Cancel her baby shower, but still expect everyone to come over and revolve around her grief? It was classic Maya. Something in me snapped. I called my mom back. We're going ahead with the party. But we'll frame it as a general celebration of new life. Not just Maya's. It felt like a compromise. She'd still get attention, relatives wouldn't have wasted their travel, and maybe, just maybe, I could quietly confide my own pregnancy to a few close family members. The shower began well enough. Maya arrived dressed in black from head to toe, as if mourning her own happiness. She made dramatic sighs, dropping mentions of heartbreak like confetti. Still, relatives cooed over her, handed her gifts, and tried to sprinkle joy over the gloom she insisted on carrying. 2 hours in, the air was warm with chatter and laughter. Maya sat opening presents, paper and ribbons scattered around her like evidence of love. I stood with my mom and Aunt Kimmy near the punch bowl. My aunt smiled brightly. The first grandchild. I can't wait to spoil this baby rotten. My mom nodded, misty-eyed. I just hope there are more grandchildren someday soon. And something inside me shifted. Maybe it was months of watching Maya dominate every milestone. Maybe it was the relief of finally carrying a child past those treacherous early weeks. Or maybe I was just tired of keeping joy locked inside me like a secret. Before I could stop myself, I said softly, "Actually, you might not have to wait too long for that." The conversation froze. My mom tilted her head, eyes wide with dawning realization. Aunt Kimmy gasped, covering her mouth. I blurted it out before fear could silence me. "Tom and I are expecting too. I'm about 10 weeks along." The dam broke. My mom burst into happy tears, hugging me tightly. My aunt squealed, immediately peppering me with questions about due dates and names. Word spread through the party like wildfire, guests congratulating me, celebrating the fact that our family would have 2 babies so close in age. It should have been pure joy. But then I looked across the room. Maya stood by the gift table, clutching a cake server in her hand, the large, knife-like one used to slice the dessert. Her face was twisted in something raw, almost feral. She stormed toward me, her voice slicing the air. "This is my day. My baby shower. You couldn't let me have one thing, could you?" The chatter died instantly. The room froze. My grandmother nearly choked on her punch. Maya waved the cake knife, pointing it directly at my stomach. "You're jealous. You had to steal this from me too." Gasps filled the room. My mother shrieked. My aunt dropped her cup. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The blade wasn't close enough to touch, but the symbolism was unmistakable, my sister threatening me and my unborn child in front of our entire family. Tom stepped between us in an instant, his voice calm but firm. "Maya, put it down." Her chest heaved. Her hand shook. Finally, with a sharp exhale, she slammed the knife onto the table and announced, "You've ruined everything. I'll never forgive you." She swept out, arms full of her gifts, leaving behind stunned silence. I stood there trembling, half in shock, half in sorrow. I hadn't meant to steal her day. But how could celebrating my joy, our joy, be wrong? Was I supposed to shrink forever, never daring to shine, just so Maya could keep center stage? The image of her pointing that knife at me seared itself into my mind. That night, as Tom held me close, I kept replaying it over and over. The rage in her eyes. The way the room had fallen silent. The way my grandmother's frail hands had trembled against her cup. It wasn't just a scene. It was the culmination of 28 years of Maya stealing my light, escalating from petty lies to dangerous drama. And now, I couldn't help but wonder, had I crossed a line by speaking up, or was this simply the inevitable explosion after decades of suppression? The week after what my family now calls the Great Cake Knife Incident of 2024, the dust hadn't even settled when Maya struck again. At first, I thought maybe she'd finally retreat. Surely, threatening her pregnant sister with a knife in front of our grandmother had to be rock bottom. Surely, she'd want to fade quietly into the background, lick her wounds, and, just once, allow someone else to carry the narrative. But Maya has never been one to surrender the spotlight. On Monday morning, my phone buzzed relentlessly on the nightstand. I groaned, thinking it was just group congratulations about my pregnancy that hadn't filtered through yet. Instead, I opened my screen to 47 notifications. Maya had created a family group chat titled "The Truth About Liza." She added everyone. And I mean everyone. Parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, distant family friends, even Tom's parents. Nobody was spared from the spectacle she unleashed at 3 a.m. Her message was a manifesto, pages long, riddled with half-truths and outright fabrications. According to Maya, I had been secretly trying to get pregnant for the sole purpose of stealing her thunder. She claimed I'd been tracking her cycle, timing things to wound her at the maximum moment of pain. She accused me of whispering lies to Derek, manipulating him into breaking up with her, sabotaging her relationship out of jealousy. I blinked at the screen in disbelief. Derek? The man who believed aliens built the pyramids? The one I'd spoken to twice? The idea that I wielded some Machiavellian control over his choices was laughable. But then came the piece de resistance. Maya announced that she was expecting twins. She claimed she'd discovered this miracle the day after her baby shower. She hadn't shared sooner, she wrote, because she was too hurt by my betrayal. Now, however, she was revealing the joyous news despite the pain. For a moment, silence reigned in the chat. Then my cousin Jake, who has all the subtlety of a bulldozer, typed. "Wait, Maya, didn't you just post an Insta story with a glass of wine last night? Kinda weird if you just found out you're having twins." He attached a screenshot, Maya, glass of red wine in hand, captioned drowning my sorrows. The chat imploded. Some relatives demanded answers. Others sent awkward emojis. My grandmother was utterly confused, texting my mother privately, "Are we expecting 2 babies, 3 babies, or none? Should I knit 2 blankets or 3? Maya scrambled, claiming she'd only had a sip, that stress made her symptoms worse, that toxic family members were threatening her health. I sat staring at the screen, torn between fury and exhaustion. I wanted to defend myself, to point out the absurdity of her lies, but something in me resisted. I remembered advice I'd seen online: don't feed the drama. Document it, but don't engage. So instead of replying, I called my parents directly. "We need to talk," I said. "All of us. Sit down like adults." My father agreed. My mother hesitated but eventually said yes. Maya's response when Mom invited her? "I'm too emotionally fragile. I'll only attend if everyone acknowledges that Liza deliberately hurt me, and if she apologizes for ruining my shower." I laughed out loud, bitter and sharp. Maya wanted a formal apology from me, for announcing my pregnancy at a party she tried to cancel, while she was simultaneously inventing twin babies and spreading lies? Tom suggested ignoring her entirely. "She'll burn herself out," he said. "Don't waste energy." But my stress levels were climbing, and every time my grandmother called in tears about which blanket pattern to knit, I wanted to scream. I thought things had hit peak absurdity. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, my mother called me at work, whispering as though she were relaying classified intel. "Liza, honey, Maya's in the hospital." My stomach dropped. Despite everything, she was my sister, and she was pregnant. I feared the worst. "What happened? Is the baby okay?" She said she had severe cramping. They did an ultrasound. Twins confirmed. But there might be complications. My heart pounded. But something inside me tugged with suspicion. "Which hospital?" I asked. "She won't say," my mom admitted, voice breaking. "She says the doctors want her to rest." But she sent me a picture of the ultrasound. A text pinged moments later. I opened it, expecting some reassurance. Instead, my stomach twisted. The image looked wrong. Too crisp, too staged, the kind of stock picture you'd find in a medical brochure. And in the corner, faint but visible, was a watermark, sample image. I sent it to my friend Jessica, a radiology tech. She called me back within minutes, laughing so hard she could barely breathe. "Liza, this is literally the first result on Google when you search twin ultrasound." She didn't even crop out the watermark. So my sister hadn't just exaggerated. She hadn't just embellished. She'd faked an entire medical emergency, sent our family a stock photo, and pretended she was hospitalized. I called my mother back, gently explained what Jessica had found. Silence stretched across the line. Finally, Mom whispered, "Oh, honey. I was really hoping this time was different." Turns out, my parents had already begun doubting her. Maya had been asking for money, for medical expenses and special twin vitamins, all while posting Instagram stories from expensive restaurants. My father had refused to send more cash, which likely pushed her to escalate with this fake crisis. But the unraveling didn't stop there. Derek, the boyfriend who had dumped her, showed up unannounced at her apartment. He'd been trying to reconcile, offering to attend appointments, even suggesting counseling. Maya had brushed him off, but when he knocked on her door and demanded answers, he got them. She tried showing him the same ultrasound. Derek, bottle cap collector though he was, wasn't stupid. He pulled out his phone, reverse-searched the image, and found the stock photo instantly. Their argument was loud enough to wake neighbors. Derek packed up the rest of his collection from her place and left for good, but not before calling my mother to expose the entire scam. The next day, my parents confronted Maya. She doubled down at first, insisting Derek was lying. But when my father threatened to verify with her doctor directly, she cracked. Her excuse? I felt like nobody was taking my pregnancy seriously enough after Liza announced hers. I needed something special to make me feel important again. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She'd faked twins, a hospitalization, and a medical crisis, all because she couldn't handle not being the center of attention. My parents finally cut her off financially, demanding she seek counseling. For once, they weren't making excuses. But Maya? She declared it was all part of a family conspiracy to isolate her during her most vulnerable time. Meanwhile, I was 14 weeks along, exhausted, and terrified of what fresh chaos she might invent next. Tom begged me to cut contact completely. My parents wavered, torn between protecting me and mourning the daughter they barely recognized. And I felt the weight of every choice, every sigh, every lie, pressing down on me and my unborn child. 6 months passed after the twin fiasco. 6 long, uneasy months where I half expected Maya to stage yet another drama. But something unexpected happened. She started therapy. At first, I thought it was another performance, a new stage role, Maya, the healing woman, bravely confronting her demons. But she kept going. Twice a week. Not just showing up, but actually doing the work. For the first time in our lives, Maya wasn't performing for applause. She was unraveling herself, layer by layer, with the help of someone who refused to play her games. Her therapist traced the roots of her behavior back to our childhood, when our father had gone through a silent depression. As kids, we didn't have words for it, but we felt it. Dad would come home from work, withdrawn, heavy with silence. Mom tried to keep everything afloat, but Maya noticed what I didn't. When she staged a crisis, our parents reacted. They came alive. They gave attention. For a scared little girl, those reactions became her oxygen. And somewhere along the way, she forgot how to live without them. Hearing that broke something inside me. For years, I'd thought of Maya as my tormentor, my saboteur. But now I saw her as a child who had once been desperate for love, who never grew out of the habit of manufacturing emergencies just to feel seen. The real test came 3 months before my due date. Maya gave birth to her son, Jackson. No fake complications. No dramatic monologues. No stock photos or invented illnesses. Just a tired, messy, overwhelmed new mom holding her newborn with wide, unguarded eyes. She looked real. I visited her in the hospital, my hand trembling on the doorframe. Part of me still expected theatrics. But when she saw me, she just smiled weakly and whispered, "He's perfect, isn't he?" For the first time, her voice didn't carry an undertone of rivalry. It carried awe. Derek, yes, the bottle cap enthusiast who believed in alien pyramids, stepped up in a way none of us anticipated. They didn't reconcile romantically, but he became a devoted father. He brought diapers, midnight snacks, jokes to make Maya laugh when she looked exhausted. Their co-parenting wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, and steady was exactly what Maya needed. My parents began to change too. With the guidance of Maya's therapist, they faced their own enabling patterns. Dad admitted he often rewarded her chaos because it was easier than facing the quiet weight of his own depression. Mom confessed she'd swooped in to fix every mess because she couldn't stand seeing her daughter struggle. It wasn't just Maya who was healing, it was all of us. By the time my due date rolled around, Maya was no longer the black hole sucking every ounce of attention. She was my sister again. Flawed, fragile, but learning. And then, one bright morning, after hours of labor that blurred into eternity, I held my own child. A baby girl, Emma. Her cries split the air, raw and beautiful. Tom wept openly, clutching my hand as though we'd both just crossed into another universe. I was exhausted, delirious, overwhelmed with love. But when Maya walked into my hospital room, cradling a handmade gift, I nearly cried again. It was a photo album. Inside were pictures of us as children, laughing on the swings, building lopsided sandcastles, birthday cakes with too much frosting. Moments I'd forgotten, moments before the sabotage, before the rivalry. On the last page, a handwritten note, for Emma, so she knows her mama was always loved, even when I didn't know how to show it. Auntie Maya. I clutched it to my chest, speechless. For years, I'd believed Maya would never change. That she would keep spiraling until she destroyed herself, dragging everyone else with her. But in that moment, I realized something else. Sometimes people hit rock bottom, and it's exactly the crack they need to let the light in. Maya still stumbles. Old habits tug at her like vines, but now she catches herself. She apologizes. She tries again. And maybe that's all any of us can ask from each other. Looking back, I don't excuse the chaos, the lies, the cake knife waved at my stomach. But I see the story differently now. It wasn't just about sabotage. It was about survival, about a girl who learned the wrong lessons and finally chose to unlearn them. And me? I'm no longer living in her shadow. I'm a mother, building a life that doesn't shrink to accommodate her needs. For the first time, our stories run side by side, not colliding, not competing, but coexisting. Sometimes, the worst storms lead the clearest skies. And as I watch Emma sleep, her tiny chest rising and falling, I know one thing with absolute certainty: whatever chaos the past held, the future belongs to her, and I will not let anyone steal her light.